Hello, Wake Up New Zealand. Carol Sake speaking. Well, it's been a very long day. We've just been into Auckland City to the Free Speech Union. They were showing a doco called Last Word, and we were able to discuss the doco and what happened in Albert Park yesterday and other things about free speech. It was quite interesting. Simon O'Connor was there from the National Party. So I had two questions that I didn't actually get answered. One was Simon O'Connor. I said to him, why is it that citizens binding referendums have never been introduced by the National Party? Oh, I'll answer that afterwards, he says. And then he made a quick excerpt away where he was sitting and never did answer it. Now, I posed this question to so many leaders of small parties, and I'm not getting the answers I need. The answers I need because this is about free speech. New Zealanders, they have no end of decision-making rights. They don't have a say to end decision rights when it comes to laws, regulations in Parliament. They just don't. So those rights belong to those in Parliament. They are either binding or non-binding, and they make the choice. For us, they are non-binding. It means we don't have a legal end decision right as a people of New Zealand. So it doesn't matter how many petitions you sign, how many times you speak up, it's still the same. And I want to hear from parties why you will not introduce that. Because until you do, we have no end decision-making rights. Forget it. Forget the petitions. Forget the submissions. Because it makes no difference. It really doesn't. So the other thing that I brought up with the Free Speech Union was, how come they had a movie and on it they showed a bit of a Muslim man who had been affected by the Christchurch attack in March 2019. Very small, but really compared with what could have been put. So anyhow, afterwards I asked, well, why is it that on your movie, and no one is prepared to openly, publicly talk about this, that there were 17 questions from the community that was asked of the Royal Commission of Inquiry as to the Christchurch attacks. And one of those was, were the Muslim community in Christchurch scared of a particular group or anyone prior to those attacks? Now, the answer came back from the Royal Commission, and that was up to 3 years. And at the time of the attack, they were really concerned and scared about Daesh. Now, Daesh is an ISIS group. No mention of right-wing extremism or white supremacy. It was Daesh. So I just happened to say to Free Speech Union, I said, so why don't you mention this? No reply. Can you tell me, am I right in what I'm telling you? Because I have read this on the Royal Commission report. Yes, you're right, but no one mentions it. They would rather go along with right-wing, left-wing, right-wing, left-wing. That is playing into cultural Marxism. We need to stop this left wing, right wing, left wing, right wing. We're all individuals in our own right. So all the time, any group goes down this road, right wing, left wing, you're buying into cultural Marxism. You're being sucked into the game. So people, think about this. I want you to think about what I've told you tonight. And I'd like some sort of discussion on this. And we need to actually start sending emails out. Start when you see a politician anywhere, you corner them and you ask them these questions, these two particular questions, because mainstream media, who are evil and propaganda machines, they are the leaders of the woke, the leftists, paid off by the journalist fund, by the government. You taxpayers paid for that. And they are standing right there promoting sexualization in schools. And, you know, the new process that's coming out in June, 15th of June, self-determination of gender process. Now, a person can go and change their birth certificate, their name, their sex, and their gender as many times as they like. They can keep on amending their birth certificate as many times as they like. So that means there's a high risk of fraud and counterfeit documentation. Young people, children, can do this as well, as long as they have someone who will actually stand up for them. That would have to be someone who's over 18 years old. It would have to be a professional. And if you look at professionals, I mean, that's counsellors, social workers, dentists, doctors, and the list goes on and on and on. Very broad. So, and the third party authority, so a child can go and have his or her sex changed, amended, name changed, amended, gender. Well, someone over 18 years of age, someone who's known them for 12 months, it can be a sibling, it can be a member of the family, it can be anyone. Think about it, people. And as for the queering of schools, go back to 2011 in Wellington, a political activist group called the Queer Avengers. And I am not kidding you, this is not a comic book strip. The Queer Avengers, who were in contact with Grant Robertson, and all they were concerned about was actually changing reform in Parliament, the queering of schools in New Zealand. And now this is true. So the Workers' Party of New Zealand, a representative of that party who campaigned to be Mayor of Christchurch in 2007, was Byron Clark. And he actually promoted this. He advertised it. So therefore, he is part of it. And I had to look further at this, and I found that in Te Papa, in the archives, there is a plaque, a school plaque, and it's got on there, written on the plaque, Queering of Schools in New Zealand, 2011, the Queer Avengers. Yes. And it goes even back further than that to the evil John William Money, psychologist, psychiatrist, sexologist, born in Morrinsville, New Zealand in 1955. went to uni here for a short time, then went on to Johns Hopkins Institute. There he opened the first gender clinic in the world, the first one to use the word gender officially, and he did guinea pig experiments with intersex babies until the Reamer family, Mr. and Mrs. Reamer, they had twin identical boys. Now, those twin identical boys, Bruce and Brian, at 6 months, they could not urinate properly, so they were circumcised. And what happened was one of them, Brian, I believe it was severely injured through that operation. And his penis was rendered as would never be able to produce babies. It was terrible. What happened. So what happened was the mum and dad, they looked for help everywhere. They tried all doctors, specialists, no one. And then one day, watching Canadian news, they see John William Money, who says he can do this and this and this, and the medical profession were holding him up there as something amazing in what he was doing. So they contacted him. And what happened was he used both boys. So I think it was Brian. He would end up being, one of them would end up being, the one who was damaged from the surgery would end up being the guinea pig, who would be then named Brenda. So Brenda actually had penis removed, had a false vagina, had hormone treatments, estrogen, but all the time knew that he was not a girl and struggled with that throughout life. And finally, when he was in 1980, he was told by his family about the operations and what happened to him, the full truth. And so was the brother. But Jim Money, he used to get both boys, and one boy remained the male, and the other one was a female Brenda. And he used to get the boys thrusting and pushing Brenda's legs open while one of them was laying on top. And if they didn't want to comply, he would shout and get angry with them. He would have an audience watching them. He would make one of the boys actually undress, and he would stand there naked and shaking. And all this was going on. And he was saying, John Money was saying what a success all this was, while these two lads were being used as guinea pigs. It was terrible. It was evil. It was cruel. But the transgenders will never tell you about this. And it was John William Money that was very influential in what you see going on today. So I asked you people to look at the Reamer twins from Winnipeg in Canada and what John William Money did to them. It's disgusting. It's cruel. It's evil. And this is where it's all come from. So his was like nature versus nurture, and nurture won every time. So he believed in getting a child as young as possible and social re-engineering them through a cognitive therapy. And that's what he did. And that's just what they're doing to our children in schools today. Wake up, New Zealand. Do your homework. Look at what I've told you. I've given you 3 things to look at. Citizens binding referendums, the 17 questions, community questions to the Royal Commission on the Christchurch attacks and what the answers were. And you can get that. And also John William Money. and his experiments on the guinea pig experiments, terrible on the Riemer twins. So anyhow, at the end, this young lad turned out that he had his breasts removed that had grown through estrogen, and his vagina, they had sort of built a sort of kind of penis that was no good. And he struggled. He tried suicide, or was suicidal depression at the age of 13. The kids at school called him cave woman, and he left school early and he had to be homeschooled. His brother went through terrible depression. In the end, both boys actually suicided. They were young men, 30 years old. It is so, so sad. And this is part of New Zealand history. So you can find out that yourself. Sorry, I haven't been completely clear on this. I got up this morning. I've been to meetings, etc. We've been on the go since 9 o'clock this morning. We've only just got back from the Free Speech Union, and the time's getting on. It's 10 o'clock, so 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock tonight, 9 o'clock this morning till 10 tonight. But I wanted to get this on here, and I want to challenge those small parties. Are you going to introduce in your policies citizens binding referendums? Because this is about free speech. So I challenge you. I challenge people to ask those parties, ask those small parties, and get a clear answer. Don't expect just anything and walk away. You want a clear answer. Then you will find out whether they are standing up for the people or not, because this is about the people having a voice. Wake up, New Zealand.